Now, the whole issue of reshufflement is an admission that your cabinet is not going the way you thought they would go. And then it's also an opportunity for you to redress a lot of things that are very wrong with your administration. You came in and people were crying. The cost of governance is quite high. Then you sacked 5 ministers and you chose 7. How does that address the issue of cost of governance? Now, let's go to the nitty-gritty of the ministers that he chose. There are about 48 ministers in this cabinet, and there are about 32 substantive ministers, 16 ministers of state. For the avoidance of doubt, ministers of state, they are not recognized by the Constitution. They are contraption by the president. By Section 147, subsection 1, it is clear the president should appoint ministers of the government of the federation. And by Section 147, subsection 3, it said that appointment must accord with Section 14.3 of the Constitution, which is the federal character principle, which states that the composition of every government and the conduct of its affairs must reflect the federal character. In order to command national unity, national loyalty, and ensure that there is no preponderance of persons from a particular ethnic group, from a particular section on the government. Now, this government has 8 substantive ministers from Southwest. That's about 25% of the 32 ministers in Nigeria. In South-South, 6 states with the Southwest, they have only 3 substantive ministers. That is about 9% of the substantive ministers. In the Southeast, they have 2. That's about 6% of the substantive ministers. So out of the 32, you see how Ogun State alone has more substantive ministers than the entire Southeast. And then equal ministers from the South-South. And I can name them if you want. Minister of Power, Industry, Interior, Finance, Communication, Education, Marine Resources, Solid Mineral. From Southwest. And they're talking about 2. Southeast, Works, Science. 3, South-South. You're talking about
Southeast.
2 substantive ministers.
Okay, substantive. You're
Substantive.
being specific.
There is nothing like ministers of state. That's a contraption of the president. That is why Festus Keyamo said it at the FEC meeting, that it's illegal. However, it is not illegal because they are ministers of state. It is illegal because the president is using it to say he has given a state a substantive ministry, which is illegal. Because every state is equal by the federal character principle. That's the whole idea of it. So every state is entitled to a substantive minister. He said at least 1 minister. And I'm talking about Section 147, subsection 3 of the Constitution. So what I'm saying is that in the South-South, you have the FCT, Aviation, and Regional Development ministers. Substantive. So this government has continued in the line of governing this country with preponderance of people from the Southwest, his own geopolitical zone, portraying him as ethnic bigot, portraying him as a man incapable of uniting Nigeria and giving people a sense of belonging. The danger is that his government will never get the loyalty that it needs to govern.